Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we have Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
All right, here we are on the YouTubes again. This is getting pretty fun, and I like our blue here. We got a couple shadows in the back, but are you putting your arm around me, Ben?
I am. We're getting close.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, and thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel if you have, and if you haven't, well, maybe you should. We put out content every week in regards to addiction. I think it's definitely something that, is our expertise, I would like to think, anyway. In this episode, what we want to discuss is what really the pitfalls that happen whenever we get sober and kind of put some substantial sobriety time together, because as the longer that we are sober, the kind of easier things get, the more complacent that we can get. And so we just wanted to discuss some of those things.
I feel like we cover a lot of stuff for newcomers and people just getting started, but quite a lot of our viewers have long-term sobriety, 5 years plus, and I think it's kind of important to touch on a lot of this stuff that came to mind. I'm sure there's probably a lot more than we jotted down, but let's have a starting point here.
Let's just get right into it, Ben. Take us off.
So long-term sobriety and new challenges. And I just want to speak from a personal level. One of the things that I've really found to be difficult, I remember when I went into treatment, and what I wanted when I got out was, to have my family together. And, maybe you don't have a family and you get to treatment. You want to meet somebody, you want to have kids, whatever the case is. Well, here I am down the road, what do we got now? 11 years. And I have my family. Now, I didn't foresee the challenges that were going to come with that. I really struggle with family balance. How do we balance our recovery and giving our family the attention that they need? Because one of the things that I was taught was I have to put my recovery first, no matter what. And to be honest with you, Tom, sometimes it feels kind of selfish, but I get the point, because without my recovery, I don't have my family anyway. And, I'll speak specifically to my situation with Whitney. She's very understanding of me being in recovery and having sponsees and having a home group and going to meetings and being asked to speak at meetings and commitments and service commitments. But sometimes I feel guilty. She'll bring it up once in a while. There were, in particular, a couple weeks ago, there was a point where I was like, hey, I got asked to speak at the Monday night meeting. Are you okay with that? And she was like, so you're going to be gone 4 days this week at night to do AA commitments. I'm like, yeah, and it's hard to know when to rebut that. I have a really hard time saying no, because in my recovery, I was always taught, like, if you're asked to do service, you never say no. But is that realistic? I can tell you that I never say no. And the reason I bring this up this week is because I actually said no for the first time in 11 years on Monday night, where I didn't legitimately already have like another commitment or something going on. And I had to call my buddy and tell him, hey man, I'm in a position right now where if I come speak at this meeting, Whitney pointed out to me that I'm going to be gone 4 nights this week. She needs my help with the kids at home, and it's a hard balance. And part of me felt really bad saying that to him, and my responsibility in my recovery and helping another alcoholic and addict. But ultimately, I'm pretty sure I did the right thing.
You did.
All right. Co-signing it.
Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum. I have no problem saying no to people when it comes to, well, just about anything. But, in my situation, and I've talked about this a lot before, that when I married my wife, she didn't know me as an addict or an alcoholic. She didn't know me really in any of that situation. What she does know is that I do have a program of recovery. Now, at the time when we got married, my program consisted of, at best, one meeting a week. And there was a period of time where it consisted of no meetings. And I was still sober and still, working and doing everything. But the reason that I bring that up is because it set the tone that I didn't really need to do anything more than once a week. And arguably, from her perspective, I didn't have to do anything. And when it came time to want to go to more meetings and to partake in AA more, she got nervous. She's like, okay, why? Are you thinking that you're going to drink, or, what is going on to where you need to go to more meetings? And for me, it was I just want to go to more meetings. That's all. I enjoy it. I enjoy hanging out with the guys and stuff like that. But so that's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where I was balanced more in everything. Everything was kind of not AA. So two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum here, which is, I think, what's good about, us going back and forth with this stuff, because we really have two different perspectives when it comes to, our recoveries. They don't look similar really at all. So
It's interesting you bring it up from the wife's perspective, because like you're saying, Whitney saw me in active addiction. Was a severe IV drug addict, and Amanda never got to see that in you. She's never seen you drunk. Whitney witnessed and partook in my craziness and insanity. So it's interesting you bring that up, where the expectations were from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think it's good, though, too, because, the biggest thing, and I guess this is a very important thing to discuss, is having open communication with your spouse or your loved one, whoever that is, because that's what this really boils down to. And I know you, when in conversation with Whitney, I'm sure you've told her the importance of, fulfilling these commitments and stuff like that. But just the same, she needs to be able, and it sounds like she communicated to you in a way like, yeah, I understand that's important, but our family is just as important, and in certain situations more important.
Yeah, and I hear all this contradictory stuff too. On the contrary to what you're saying, there's a saying in the rooms, don't let the life that AA gave you take you out of AA. So I'm constantly hearing messages like that, and I get it. It's you build your life up, it's really easy to disappear. And to be frank with you, I've seen a lot of cases. You'll see a lot of people go back out. I've seen it quite often, to be honest with you. I hate throwing time frames on it, because time frames don't really matter. It can happen anywhere. But generally speaking, I've seen quite a few people go out around the 5-year mark, and they all tell you the same story. I got this life going, and I unintentionally saw my way out of service work, out of meetings, out of sponsoring, and just life starts to feel so good, but you got to remember the things that got you there to begin with, and at least keep them there. So the balance part, it's interesting. We have two different perspectives on it.
Yeah, so let's get into the next one, which is kind of what we discussed anyway, which is, and I was this person. I really didn't, it's not that I didn't have time for meetings. It's just meetings weren't really on my mind. It wasn't something that I thought was, not that I didn't think it wasn't necessary. It's just, I started having children, was very focused on my career, these sorts of things. And there was probably a 1.5 year period of time where I didn't go to one meeting. And it wasn't really brought to my attention by anybody. But I linked up with a friend of mine, and he's told me about this Wednesday night meeting that, him and some of the guys go to, and they, have a cigar and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, let me give this a try. And that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I've been going now to the same meeting ever since. But it was very important that in all that same time, though, I did stay connected to sober people. No, I wasn't going to meetings, but I also wasn't hanging out at sports bars watching football games and stuff like that. I still stayed grounded in my morals. I knew who I was now as a sober person. Like just because I stopped going to meetings didn't mean that I didn't have the foundational structure around my sobriety. It's just something that kind of fell off by the wayside. But some people fall off of meetings, but then they also fall off in every other area of their life. And I think that's when it becomes a serious issue, is when not only am I not going to meetings, but now I'm doing other things that are really red flags that a relapse is around the corner.
No doubt there. Couldn't have said that part better myself. And really this comes down to every individual seeing this for themselves as well. Because I got to remember, from my perspective, like, my recovery is not going to look like somebody else's, where Tom was kind of touching on it, but I got to admit that, like, recovery has become like a big part of my identity. I don't know who I would be without it. And I'm not talking about just the being sober, not picking up a drink or a drug part, but it's become part of this culture for me. Like, I'm so enveloped in the culture of recovery, and I've ended up working in it. Tom and I, we've talked about it in the past on the podcast, but we met in school. We were both going to school to be addictions counselors. That's where we met, went on our first date. And I have to keep in mind that, for instance, with our clients, they come here and maybe they're an AC technician. Maybe they're a car mechanic. Maybe they're a financial advisor, and that it just looks different logistically for them than it does for me. And I have to keep that in mind when I'm working with people, that we come from all backgrounds, and my recovery is not necessarily going to look like somebody else's.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that better myself, Ben.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
All right. So let's get into the really what I think is more the physical aspect of it. Meetings and sponsorship and sponsees and stuff like that. That's going to cover a lot of the emotional side of it, the mental side of it, the spiritual side of it. But then we have the physical side of it, which is just as equally as important. Physical exercise and nutrition. I know for myself, it's been a roller coaster, to be honest. And we covered this a couple podcasts ago. Right now, I'm kind of in a lull when it comes to physical exercise and nutrition. It's been something that I've battled with for quite some time. But in the end, I know when I'm eating better and I'm eating not heavily processed foods and I'm eating things that are, from the produce section and just meat and simple carbohydrates. Ben, you want to hit the AC?
Yeah, I can
put the AC up. One of these days we'll remember to turn that up before we start recording. But anyways, what I was saying is, when I'm eating good, I feel better. When I'm exercising, I feel better. And when I'm not doing these things, I feel worse. And I think it can't be any more simple than that. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, for me, I'm an open book about it. Anybody that knows me, the part of the culture, that the fitness part, I was a personal trainer, inactive addiction, it's just always been a part of my life, eating healthy, the gym. But basically, I'm drawing a blank, Tom. Oh yeah, that's where I was going with that. I'm an open book in the fact that, I talk about my mental health a lot. I'm diagnosed bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 equals blue, 2 blue. You get depressed, and it's something I've dealt with my whole life. But this getting into the gym, eating healthy, like, it's something that I have to do for my mental health. And kind of the reason that I wanted to talk about this part is, again, this comes back to long-term recovery and balance. when I see guys when they go into treatment all the time, and ladies, you got all this free time on your hands. You're maybe working a part-time job, an IOP, and some of our guys, they're going to the gym 7 days a week. We even had one guy recently, I found out he was spending over 4 hours in the gym in a day. And the thing is in the beginning, you're setting yourself up for something that's not realistic later. You know, it's how do I balance staying in the gym, getting my time for me? And frankly, we have to be I have to be really tight with my schedule. You know, people are always like, "Oh, Ben, how long do you spend in the gym?" You know, and I've got it down to the point where I'm in and out in 45 minutes. If I'm at the gym an hour, it was a long workout. And that includes, I always warm up by sitting in the sauna. Getting old, I don't want to have any injuries. Also makes you more vascular, raises your growth hormone, etc. Before sitting in, a little health tip there. But, you know, sitting in the sauna, getting a lift in, and doing cardio, I get all that done in 45 minutes, an hour. Like, I'm in and I'm out. You know, I have to use the kids club for my little one, so I got to go during those hours. Or I sneak over really quick, either use our gym here in a bind, but I like getting out of the office to work out because it gives me somewhere to go. It's so hard to stay here at our gym here at Rock and not get tied up in work stuff, but just running over right next door to LA Fitness and getting a workout in, like, it's absolutely imperative. And there's been times where, you know, there was a couple of years where I was only making it to the gym 2, sometimes 3 times a week. And lately I've gotten back on the horse where I'm literally making it 5-6 days, but it's, again, coming back to the balance. It's not consuming all these hours out of my life. You know, it's a quick thing. I'm getting it done. I'm in and out. I work out by myself most of the time, you know, so I don't have to tend to anybody. Don't talk to anyone. Get in, get out.
Well, and for people too that have a hard time even getting into the gym, like, there is a real thing for people that they have like this phobia of going into the gym. This doesn't mean that you have to go to a gym in order to cover the physical aspect of sobriety. I know people that, and myself included, like, I've had a membership for LA Fitness for years and I hardly use it, if ever, but it doesn't mean that I can't get the physical activity part done. You know, I am fortunate enough to obviously have a gym here at the center, but I also have a little setup in my garage. But even for me, just going on a walk, you know, a few times during the day for 10 minutes each time and setting it up to where it's super easy to do. I know that if I'm getting 10 to 15,000 steps in a day, that's a lot more than the average person is doing, you know, especially people that have a desk job or, you know, whatever the case is. Or just picking yourself up a little kettlebell or something that you can just do at home. Get a pull-up rig to put in your doorway, something, push-ups, anything really to get the blood flow and get, you know, some sort of resistance training in. Bands are really good. You know, if you get yourself a set of bands, there's really nothing that you can't cover without having to go into a box gym or a CrossFit type setup. And, you know, so there really is no excuse why we can't do those things. A lot of times, though, it's just rooted in the mental aspect of why we don't, which is something that we need to break through and figure out, okay, why is it? What is this barrier that I have set forth in my mind that's preventing me from getting in that physical aspect, which is something, honestly, that I'm battling with right now. And, you know, I'll figure it out. I've been there before plenty of times, but, you know, it's a struggle.
And just to give another example, Tom hit the nail on the head. You know, it doesn't have to be the gym. For instance, on Sundays, there's no kids club at the gym, so I plan on going for a quick run, you know, and that's also a day where I have an opportunity in the evening to spend time with the family. You know, I don't want to be gone long. I literally go out my front door. I'm back in about 18 minutes, you know, and all I got to do is shower. I go for a run, little run through my neighborhood that goes through the backside of a park. And again, going back to this, for me, it has a lot to do with my mental health. If I don't get that endorphin release, if I go about 4 days usually day 4 with no physical activity, like I start falling apart mentally, and I definitely need that. And tying back into that too, Tom touched on nutrition when we started talking about this portion. Convenience as well. Like I kind of want to touch on some of the tips and tricks that I use to continue to eat healthy, because it's really easy to get busy and pull through McDonald's, or even these places that I consider in my head kind of healthy, like Pollo Tropical. Oh, it's chicken and rice, but you don't know what they're cooking it with. Like, is it really that healthy? Don't get me wrong, in a pinch, yeah, absolutely. But I thought this would be kind of fun to talk about for a second. But I got a little survival kit here at the office. It's bags of Uncle Ben's rice and tuna, a big thing of oatmeal with some honey, some protein powder in case I need a little bit of protein. But we also have the beef jerky, if you will. There's a lot of things that I can do that are convenient that nowadays I can just throw in the microwave. They got microwave vegetables. Convenience is key. And to be straight up with you, one of those Uncle Ben's bags of rice, or I bought the Target one this weekend. They were $1.19 a piece, and then little thing of tuna, what are they, 99 cents, I think? So that meal right there, it's cheaper than pulling through McDonald's. McDonald's got expensive lately. Man, I pulled through there with the family. It's $30-$40. It's crazy. But anyway, going back to the convenience of it, like there are ways to keep your diet somewhat in check, because that is going to affect your mental health in the way that you feel as well, your energy, etc. And it's hard to get into the good habit and not slide into pulling through those drive-thrus, but it can be done. One I want to touch on real quick. This is an awesome tip, I think. We talk about it in the office all the time. Pretty much, I think this comes up every conversation we ever have, but I always talk about the air fryer. I got a Ninja air fryer. It's like a microwave for adults. That's the way I explain it. Like, I literally drop steaks in there. I drop pork chops in there. It's 8-9 minutes. Boop, done. It's convenient. It's fast. So coming back to this balance. Now I have family. I have to balance my recovery. Like, how can I eat quickly? I don't want to I'm not somebody who has all the time in the world to sit around and cook 3 healthy gourmet meals a day. And I'll throw it out there. For instance, on my Instagram and Facebook, on my stories, I've been posting a lot of what I've been eating throughout the day. And I've actually gotten a lot of messages back that I thought it was redundant, but people have been messaging me, hey, I really like it when you post what you're eating, because I didn't realize how much it would help people. But like when they see that I'm eating 4 eggs over some white rice, like, oh, that's something I could do. And it actually tastes really good with a little bit of salt and pepper and maybe some hot sauce. But there are ways to make eating healthy convenient, and hence fit it into this topic of how do I balance all this stuff?
Well, and the idea around processed foods, is something that is, these people that produce this stuff, they know, I mean, there's millions of dollars poured into research of how can I get you to eat more of this? And it kind of plays into an addict's psyche, if you will, the saying you can't eat just one, like that is so true. I know for myself, if I have a box of Oreos in my pantry, I can't eat 2 of them. I literally will eat 15 of them. And 15 Oreos is probably somewhere's up around 1,000 to 1,200 calories. And I'll eat them at night and I'll wake up the next morning and I'm just beating myself up about what I did, and today's a new day and I'm not going to do it. And it can be a very real struggle. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times when it comes to food and nutrition, people kind of laugh at it. It's a joke like, oh, yeah, last night I ate a whole sleeve of Oreos, and we can giggle about it and stuff. And in the end, I'm like, yeah, I did. And I hate myself for it, and it can be really frustrating. So, those are good tips. I mean, convenience is very important. The tuna stuff I can't buy into. That is like cat food in a bag, I suppose. But anyways, focus on your nutrition. Get some sort of physical exercise in. whether it's some walks or light jogs or a kettlebell, dumbbells, whatever the case is, resistance bands, and you're going to be on your way. I think one of the last things that we're going to discuss is the importance of continued therapy. Again, a lot of times people think, and they'll even listen to us and think, oh, Ben and Tom, they got it all together, almost 12 years of continuous sobriety. They're married, they have children, all that stuff. It's not that easy. Like, things, just because we get sober doesn't mean that life doesn't hit us. It surely does, and it hits us in a way that oftentimes is harder. Before, when I got into any sort of situations, what would I do? I would just drink. It wasn't a big deal. This problem will go away with a 12-pack of beer and a few shots. And the problem was still there the next day. And now, being sober, I don't have that option, and these problems are still there. The problems that I had when I was drinking, I still have the same problems sober. It's just, how do I now deal with them? And I've been seeing a therapist probably consistently on at least every quarter, between me and my wife. One of us is seeing this therapist at least once a month. Sometimes we're seeing this therapist as a couple. Sometimes it's on an individual level. It depends on, scheduling and stuff like that. But it's therapy, and I still use it. I still need it. It's important not only for my sobriety and my own well-being, but for my marriage as a whole. And we can't shy away from that, because just because we work the 12 steps, or we have a sponsor and we have sponsees, that we're, people will tend to put us up on some sort of pedestal, like we should have it all together, when in fact, no, it's the opposite, especially for me and you, Ben. Like, we work in addiction. This is what we do every day. We're constantly surrounded by people that have issues, and they're offsetting their issues onto us. And then, so you talk to any therapist, most therapist has a therapist. So,
Yeah, no, that's accurate. And this is somewhere where Tom's always done a better job than I have. Only recently have I really begun to feel like, man, I should be seeing a therapist, and mentioned a couple podcasts ago that Whitney and I started going to one together. Not necessarily that things are bad, but healthy communication within a relationship, hence why we're talking about the topic we're talking about today. Like, it helps me communicate with her expectations and my expectations of what family balance looks like. I don't want her getting a resentment about how much time I'm spending involved with Alcoholics Anonymous or at work, because for me, work's another one where, I have a hard time with. Tom and I, we get a lot of phone calls to get people help, and I struggle with, if that phone's ringing, I know there's an addict on the other line. I have this innate desire to answer. I have to. It's in me, and lately, through speaking with the therapist, like, I've been doing a better job at home of telling myself, okay, I can call them back in an hour. It's probably going to be okay. And finding that balance. Are there situations where I need to answer right away? Absolutely. But is it going to consume me so much that it's taken away from my family? And that's something that I've been having to look at, and that's something that I've been getting help with, through this counseling and therapy.
Yeah, don't ever just be too good for it, what it boils down to. I mean, if you're in recovery and you want to continue to improve your life, I mean, don't shy away from it. It's very don't let your pride get in the way of seeking out help from other people. And the last thing is obviously this is very important to anybody, whether you're sober or not. You got to make time for yourself. And some people take this to the extremes, to where they are so self-indulged that they forget about everybody else. But if you're the opposite, like my wife is the opposite, she'll put out for everybody else, and she's constantly pouring into other people that she forgets about herself. I'm more of, I'm going to think about myself first and then others, but it is important that you do make time for yourself, and whatever that looks like, whatever your hobbies are, your interests, things that really kind of give you that fire inside to keep going. Because if we don't do those things, then we're running on E. And like I'm leaving in a few days, and I'm going down to the Florida Keys to go fishing for 5 days. My wife is staying at home with the 3 kids and the dogs and stuff. God bless her. But I need it. I go once a year. It's an opportunity for me to just really shut my phone off, not focus on anything other than the guys that I'm with and catching some fish and having some cigars and just, enjoying life and kind of what this is all supposed to be about.
I might not be the one to speak on this topic. If there is one phrase I've heard from everybody in my life looking to give me a suggestion in the last year, it's been, Ben, you need to make time for yourself. I really struggle with what that looks like. I too, when Tom gets back, I'm actually going up to Minnesota for a cabin. We do it every summer. But the fact of the matter is, for me, is that if Whitney didn't book those tickets and tell me what dates it was, I probably wouldn't go, nor would I take any vacation time. That's just kind of who I am, which hence too is why I think it's so important to continue to have people in my life that can help me see this stuff. I'm glad that Whitney is the way that she is because she helps pull me away. You know what I mean? And basically speaking, I need to stay involved with people that are going to be willing to call me out and say, hey, Ben, did you take time for yourself today? I'm like, no, but hey, thanks for bringing it up. Now I know to kind of look at it. And I really struggle with that one because, I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're taught, the root of our problem is selfish and self-centeredness. So I always get up in my head, oh, is this selfish? Is this self-centered? If I want to stay sober, I can't be selfish. But frankly, I wish I was more like Tom on this one, where I did make more time for myself, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. Again, this whole episode's been about balance. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm still working on. That in particular is one of them.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that gives you some sort of insight, not only into ourselves and what we go through on a daily basis, but hopefully you took something from that for yourself and some things that you can implement. In the end, it's just putting one foot in front of the other and really trying to amplify your sobriety and what things that you can do to kind of just add on. We can't let our sobriety turn stale. We say it all the time. Stale sobriety is not worth having. So if you want, you can always reach out to myself, Tom at realrecoverytalk.com, Ben at realrecoverytalk.com, and leave us some sort of message or leave us a comment on a topic that you would want to see discussed in the future. Anything. Ben and we come up with ideas about, conversation pieces that we think can resonate with you, but in the end, it's just our 2 brains when we need your brains to help us. And, we want to do that for you. Anything else, Ben?
No, I reiterate, any topics you all have that you might want covered. At this point, we've got, 202 episodes?
Yep.
Yeah, so anything anybody wants to hear about, please help us out.
All right, let's amplify your sobriety and in the end, turn your mess into your message. See you later.